Okay, this is kind of a continuation of the first video, but what I want to talk about briefly here is how to get the SPSS output into your Word document so that you can submit your assignment, and also how to copy and paste a table that was posted in Module 2 in case you want to use that as your template for making the table for this assignment. So just for the sake of an example, I'm going to go through, and let's say that part of my assignment was to appropriately summarize the age variable and the PIQ positive variable using descriptive statistics. So I would go to Analyze, Descriptive Statistics. Again, choose descriptives because we don't want frequencies for these since they're continuous variables. And I have age and PIQ positive already in my variable box, but those can be toggled back and forth between the variable list and then the analysis box using this arrow. So these are the two variables I want, and I'm just going to say OK. And you can see that the SPSS output has both of these together. It tells me that for the 818 that have age included, we already saw this in the earlier video, the average age is 40.5, and then for the PIQ positive, the average is 19.4. So I'm going to use this information. The first part of the assignment is that you actually copy and paste from SPSS into the Word document the SPSS analysis that you ran for this part of the assignment. So in order to do that, you would just highlight, you would just copy this. For PC, it's a right click and copy is one of the choices, but then there's also under here, copy is also Control C. So I've already copied it, so then I can click over to I created this Word document, and for the actual assignment, you can either copy and paste the assignment itself with the whole long thing, or you can just put part 1 is the descriptive analysis that has the SPSS output, and then paste it. So here, this is exactly what I got from SPSS. One thing I'll note is that if you've run some other things originally, but they're not what you want to use, just make sure as you're copying and pasting from SPSS that you just include the parts that you want, the parts that correctly answer that question. So for example, if for age you originally went, I'll go back to the data set. If you said, oh, age, I want to analyze age and I need to use descriptive statistics and I'm going to do a frequency. So I'm just going to, for this example, go out and get these out. And I know that frequencies, that's one way to do a descriptive analysis, so I'm just going to do that for age. And then you look at it and you say, okay, and here I ran it. Oh, look, here I see all the possible ages from 18 all the way to 81. Wait, that's not exactly what I want. And this would sort of be a reminder that when you see all these possible values and they're ordered and they go from 18 to 91 and all the ages or virtually all the ages are included, that's a reminder to you that the appropriate way to analyze this continuous variable would be using mean and standard deviation and range rather than a frequency distribution. So you'd say, oh, wait, that's not what I wanted to do. Let me go back and look at this. This way of summarizing age with the minimum, maximum, mean, and standard deviation would be appropriate. So this is what I'm going to include in my assignment as my answer. So when you're deciding what to put into the Word document as your answer, you would just obviously you wouldn't copy this frequency distribution for age, but you would copy this instead. And I'll also say, I did both of these at the same time. If you want to do them one at a time, and do each of the variables that's listed in that assignment, if you want to do them one at a time, that's fine. Or if you want to just run one frequency distribution analysis that has all of the categorical variables in it, and then a second mean and standard deviation analysis that has all the continuous variables in it, that's fine. Either way is fine. So just copy and paste the relevant parts. You don't need to copy the parts that say, what are the SPSS commands. It's okay if they're in there, but you don't need to have all that stuff in there. Just really, this gets at the guts of what you want. This, in this particular example, the descriptive statistics box that has the mean and standard deviation and so on. So I have this in my, going back to the Word document, I put this in there, but then the other part of the assignment is to sort of get used to making a table, how you might present it in a, some kind of a report, your practice inquiry project, something like that. So getting used to using Word to make a table. Now you can create a table from scratch in Word. I won't necessarily go over that unless, if there are people that want me to do that, maybe shoot me an email and I can make another video for that. But I'm just going to assume that the easier thing for most people, if you haven't made tables before, is to just copy. All I did was copy and paste this table from the sample document that was in Module 2 that I put there related to the single moms data set that I'm using for the examples in the modules. So this is a descriptive table of continuous variables from that study, and all I need to do then is just go in here and edit these things. So now instead of maternal age, I'm just going to say, I'm just going to have, age, age. And what's the other one I have in here? PIQ positive. And so on. And, you'll be able to get rid of these things, or you'll just have to see how long your table has to be. But you can actually go in here and edit and say, oh, the mean for, what is it? It's 40.5, I think, for that, and the standard deviation is whatever. Now this has, I put both actual range and potential range. I would actually get rid of this because, and I'm just going to do edit and just say delete columns. Because really, for all practical purposes, we just care about the range. I put that potential and actual to give you an idea of how, in that single moms data set, how varied the responses were compared to the range that they could take. But like here, for example, really for this, if you were going to report this in a project, you would just put what the actual range was. So for the quit and win data set, the mean age is 40.5, and the standard deviation, I have to go back and see. Oops. The standard deviation is 13.0. 13.0, and the range is 18 to 81. Oh, it's right up here. That's kind of goofy. Okay. Yeah, 18 to 81. And then I can do the same thing for the PIQ positive. The range is, and I'm just highlighting these and then just just typing right over them to just change the values in the table. The mean for PIQ positive is 19.4, and the standard deviation is 11.6. And let's just say that this was a very straightforward question on a problem set, and so I can actually get rid of these other ones and have a tiny table with 2 variables in it. For me, on the PC, I can delete these cells by right-clicking, and then deleting cells is a choice, and one choice is to delete the entire row. So now I've made a little table that just has those few variables in it. And this would be the right way to take the information from this SPSS output and put it into a Word document. Yeah. And this outline is green, but that can be changed if you want it to be. I don't know why yeah. Well, that's a border issue. So for some reason the default is green when you edit the table like that, but I can, oops. Well, sometimes this is a trial and error thing. So I want this to be here. There we go. Okay. Yeah, so that just gives you a little idea of how to work with a table and get it to have what you want. Now, if you had deleted some rows, but you decide, oh, there's another variable I need to include. I'm going to include secondhand smoke. Exposure. There's a secondhand smoke exposure scale. So I could do that, and I could get the mean and standard deviation and range and add that all in. So that's how you would edit that type of a table, and how you get from the SPSS output to, putting it inside this Word document. There is a very detailed description of how to create or edit a PowerPoint figure that is included at the very top of the module section. And again, with something like that, if someone wants to see more of a step-by-step, I mean, it is step-by-step, but if someone wants to see a visual depiction of going through the steps, send me an email and I can create a video for that. Okay, and then this is, I copied this. This is the other table that you're going to have to make, and that's the frequency distribution table. I copied this also from the Module 2 document, the sample table for categorical variables from the single mothers data set. And again, in the same way, you can just go through and edit these. So if we had income in here, I can go ahead and get that real quickly here. So I'll analyze if I do income. Now remember, income is an ordinal variable, but what I mentioned in the first video is that it would typically, for something that has a coding like that, you would typically use frequencies for that, so you can see all of the categories. So I'm going to take age out. That was the mistake that I put in there. Household income, yeah. So here are the frequencies, and why. So this is why I'm saying that I think it would work better to have a frequency distribution for this, is because the way these are coded, 4,999 or less has a code of 1, and it varies all the way from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So if I took the average of this, it's probably going to be something like 5 point something or 6 point something. But in the context of these codes, that doesn't have a whole lot of meaning. So I would probably, if I were summarizing this for a descriptive analysis, I would probably use a frequency distribution like what I've done here. And you would be able to copy again, just like what I did before. So again, pretending like this is part of the assignment, you would be able to say, oh, I'm just going to paste this here. And then I have this as my SPSS output for income. And then you would be able to copy these values from this table, from the SPSS output, and you'll have to do some modification of these categories, but you'll be able to edit this table to fit the data that you have from the SPSS output. So again, the key issues here are to make sure that in this part 1, don't include a bunch of your practice SPSS trials where you realized after you ran it you made a mistake, and the most common one being either treating a categorical variable as a continuous variable and getting a mean and standard deviation for it, or treating a continuous variable as categorical and getting a frequency distribution for it. Doing those things in SPSS will let you do it. It doesn't give you a warning, but you have to be thinking about, oh, what's the level of measurement of this variable, and make sure you're doing it the way that you want. So those are the things to watch out for. If there are other topics that you would like to see videos about, let me know and I will be happy to make another one.